Now that our base coats have dried, we're going to move on and do some the shading and highlighting on the project. The first thing I want to do is do some work on the letters. I always like to stencil letters, but because that's fast, but then I like to do some little enhancements to them so that they have a little bit more character than just a flat stenciled letter. So the first thing I want to do is float some white highlights on the letters so that they have the look of being frosty or a little bit of snow on top of them. So what I'm going to use is a small flat brush. You can use something like I've got a number 4 Traditions flat here. And we're just going to side load the brush with white. And the side loaded brush, I like to wet it in water. But you don't want too much water on B, but you don't want it to be too dry. If your brush is too wet, your paint's going to puddle and run. And if it's too dry, it'll go on more as a dry brush. So I usually run the brush down the side of my water container as I'm pushing against the side. So I'll take the flat brush, push it up against the side, and touch it down into the water. So just push down and then pull it back up the side. And that seems for me to have about the right amount of water in it to side load. Dip the corner of your brush in the paint, and I'm just not getting very much paint on. It's just on the very corner of the brush, you know, a little triangle of white. And then you're going to press down on your palette with that to kind of spread that paint into the brush a little bit. The goal is that you want to have white paint on the corner where you added the paint, and it's going to fade over to clear water on the opposite side. So I'll brush one direction on the palette, and then I'll flip the brush over and brush in the same spot the other direction. So both sides of the brush have blended paint. I don't have any solid chunks of white. And then to highlight the letters, we're going to highlight the top. Let's do the top and right edges of each of the letters. So we're going to start here on the E. And I'm just going to lay that brush down along that top edge and float over the top of the E and down the right side of that. Now, this crossbar on the E, the top would be along the top here, and just stop at that corner. I'm going to do the bottom cross of the E, and again, just brush across that and stop at the edge. And you can pick up a little bit more paint on your brush every once in a while. In this case, I didn't even feel like I needed to add any water, but if your brush seems to get too dry, you can touch it back into the water, just saturate it again. So then this back part of the E, we're going to do the right edge of that. So we're coming down. And the white looks pretty stark when you first put it on, but as it dries, if you have any little bunches at the bottom, little drops of water, you can brush that out with your finger. And then I'm going to go to this bottom under the edge, the bottom cross of the T, and float that right edge down to where it starts curving, and then pick up and add a little bit more on the side of here. And then this little back edge of the E, float the top of that. And this may take a couple layers of paint. If you don't get enough on the first one, just wait till it dries and go back and touch it up again. So I can see now I'm probably going to do 2 coats on each letter. Okay, so we're going to go along on each letter and repeat the same thing. So I'm going to reload my brush again, I didn't really have to clean it out because most of the paint was gone. And I'm still working in the same little spot on my palette where I've side loaded. And we're going to go on and do the M. We're going to go to the top of the humps on the M. And then come down this outer edge. And these little letters are pretty narrow, so you don't have a lot of space to work in. I'm going to go across the bottom, down the middle hump, and across the top of that piece. And don't worry about if you get a little bit of white on your black. You can always come back and touch the background up with your black paint later. And we're going to add some snowflakes and different things to the background, so you're probably not even going to notice it later. I'm coming back over my E, doing a little bit more. I'll do one more letter, and then you can go along and work on your own, and I'll come back when I've finished all the letters. So again, on the Y, we're doing the top edges of the little crosses, and you can do the bottom cross. And then we're going to come down the right edge of each of the straight parts of the Y. I'll do that again. I don't think I was on the camera for that. If you get too much paint across your brush, take your fingers and just squeeze out that edge. It should be clean. So we're doing the top of each of the Y crosses, and then the right edge of the long straight portions of the Y. And you can see as you add the white, these letters start looking a little bit more icy. So since I was off camera on that Y, let's do the H. So again, the top of the little crossbars, and I'm getting a little too much paint on my brush. Let's clean that out and start over. Okay, so across the top of the bottom, I'm not sure what you call these, but little bars, and then down the straight back of the H along the right edge. We're going to go along the top of the hump, around that curve, and down the right edge. I've got a little bit of white paint on my background here, so what I'm going to do is take a little flat brush with some clean water and wipe that edge away. Okay, so you can continue to do the letters, and I'll come back when I get to the W. Okay, we've made our way back over to the first two letters of winter, and again we're side loading our brush, just a small flat, good number 2 or a number 4, or you may see like an 1/8 inch angle or a 1/4 inch angle would work. And we're floating again the top and right edges of the letters with white. So we're on the top of the little dot on the I, just a little bit on the top bar, a touch on the bottom bar, and I'm going to float down that right edge of the straight part of the I. You may need to clean your brush out every once in a while if it gets too much paint in it, if the paint crosses to the other side of the brush, but just clean it, reload it with water. Some brushes will hold more water than others, so if you feel like your brush has got too much water but the water's puddling, you can always just touch it just slightly on your paper towel just to pull a little bit of that excess moisture out. These tradition brushes seem to hold quite a bit of water. Some brushes seem really hard to get water into, but this one really seems to pull the water in. So now we're on the W, and we're going to do the across the top of the top bar on each leg of the W. Across the bottom bars. Pick up a little more paint. And then we're going to come down the right edge of each of these legs. Pick up a little more paint. And there we've got all of our letters highlighted with white.